my stream deck sorted out. This is painful. Absolutely painful, I tell thee. Aye. Well, hello and welcome into this Wednesday's, almost Thursday's, entertainment news. I am Jonathan, sitting in a chair that is so comfortable, to be quite frank, that I was almost not coming on. Because I literally couldn't motivate myself to find movie news. I was just sitting here. I nearly passed out in this chair last night at 3 a.m. It's a very comfortable chair, but I'm here. I did manage to find some topics just about, scraped some things together, and I'm here to discuss the latest happenings in the world of Hollywood. And right at the end of the show, I'm going to discuss some music news as well about, you guessed it, the Beatles. Can you tell that when we speak about the Beatles, we clip it? It tends to do well, it performs well, so we just like a sort of greedy miner. We just keep getting back to the same vein. Is that what you call it? A vein of gold, a vein of silver. And just keep mining the same thing again and again until there's diminishing returns. I'm going to be speaking about that just now. Sequels, Prey 2. Dan Trachtenberg has been out and he's been teasing his plans for a potential sequel to 2022's Prey movie. A movie, I have to say, was getting enormous blowback from certain sections of the internet in regards to its quality, in regards to having a female lead, and taking the premise of Predator and setting it hundreds of years in the past. I thought, you know what, I quite like the sound of that concept. That's the kind of originality that is painfully missing in Hollywood in the 21st century. I'm going to watch that movie. I did watch the movie and I fucking loved the movie. I thought it was great. I thought the lead, who's got incidentally one of the greatest names ever, Mid-Thunder, Amber Mid-Thunder is the name of the lead who played Naru in Prey. Mid-Thunder. Imagine being born to parents who have the name Mid-Thunder. How does one even go about getting the name Mid-Thunder? I think she may be off of Native American stock. I want to say she is, and it may be a Native American name. It sounds like a kind of Native American name, Mid-Thunder. Dakota Beavers, who played Tabby, I think her brother in the movie. Beavers sounds very at one with nature, at one with sort of man, beast, the land, everything. It's a very Native American name, and he's certainly a chap of Native American descent. Very cool name. Really enjoyed the movie, really enjoyed her in the leading role. Was pleasantly surprised to see some originality being injected into the Predator franchise after many, many years of just turgid shite being served to the fans, if you like. I don't know if there is fans now of Predator. Is that a thing? Is there a fandom? Is there a sort of Predator equivalent to Trekkies or Star Wars fans who go to conventions dressed as Wookiees and Stormtroopers? Is that a thing? Or is it just a sort of pop cultural void now, Predator? I don't know, but look, Trachtenberg has been out. He's been speaking about the potential for a sequel, what his plans indeed are for said sequel. And this is what he had to say, coming in from MovieWeb, no doubt plagiarised from some other source. It was comicbook.com he was speaking to. Director Dan Trachtenberg has further teased his thinking behind sequels to Prey. The critically acclaimed Predator outing that was released last year, well, I mean, it was critically acclaimed, but I can assure you, people were chatting shit about this movie, to the point where when I watched the movie, I was like, what fucking glue were they sniffing? This is a great movie. It didn't overstay its welcome. I'm going to bring up details just now. Running time, it was quite short, I want to say, an hour and 40 minutes. It was a short experience. It was exhilarating. Really original idea. People were shitting on it. I remember it. They were tripping. Oh, go on though, I digress. The filmmaker offered his philosophy on how he would approach a follow-up, and how he would strive to avoid the traps that often come with making sequels. And indeed, I've got a list here of the 10 worst sequels according to Rotten Tomatoes, which I will begin into. And I'm sure there's some on there that I have seen and perhaps not seen, and I'm sure there is some not in there which I'm going to add to the list. Just as an argument against making a sequel to Prey. Because not every movie requires a sequel. Not every single original idea is that great that you have to transform it into a trilogy. For the love of God, Hollywood, stop making trilogies. Please. Diminishing returns. There is very, very, very few perfect trilogies out there. I'm telling you. But what I digress, we'll get into it. This is what the man had to say. You finally asked the right questions. I'm just rocking in this chair. It's so good. I've got it locked into the sweet spot. I feel like an old wise man sitting on a porch somewhere in the Midwest of America with a rifle by my side and a Labrador at the other side, a bottle of bourbon and a glass, just waiting. And I'm rocking in this raggedy-arsed fucking wooden chair. This is not raggedy-arsed. It's very, very comfortable. But I'm rocking and I'm loving it. I digress. Keep saying I digress. We'll get into it. You finally asked the right question. For everyone who's been asking me about sequels, it's like, that is the thing. Is that oftentimes that is the thing, that oftentimes someone does a cool thing and the sequel is just shit. I'll fill the gaps in. And then the next part, and then it's like, oh, well, then that's just following up the cool. That isn't what that thing was. And so, yes, in thinking about what sequels could be, the primary conversation was, and always will be, what can we do that is also special that hasn't happened yet? Not just for the Predator franchise, but for this kind of genre in particular. Can we still be doing something cool? He further clarified, embellished, is that the word? I don't know, I've used it now. This to say about what he envisages, if I can say that word without stroking out, a prequel should be. I'll read it. A thing I say quite a bit in the development phase is make sure that everything is only this movie. Only this movie can we get this kind of scene or that kind of sequence. Don't have to have a scene. I don't want to have a scene in here that's like, oh, that could have been in the other Predator movies, or that could have been this Marvel film or this Star Wars. Only in this movie can you get this kind of thing. He's absolutely right. The man is right in what he's saying there. His philosophy, his approach to making a sequel to this movie is bang on. Do something truly original. Only make the movie if it is really necessary and you have fully realised an interesting continuity, a sort of continuation of the original story. Don't just cash grab because the studio is saying, look, this made good money, it had decent critical acclaim, let's springboard off of this and make a trilogy. Stand true to your morals, to your sort of convictions. Make it if it is really necessary. If you have a vision in your mind's eye of where this story can go, and you can then embellish that out further and have a really compelling story with compelling characters that necessitate a second movie, maybe even a third movie, then make it so. And then what he continues to say there is also very intriguing, that if he is going to make a sequel, it has to be something that is particular to that story. It's not been regurgitated from other movies within the same franchise, other movies within other franchises. Do something truly original. I wish Hollywood had more people with Dan Trachtenberg with that, maybe not a track record, but that mindset, because then we would be getting really interesting and unique stories being told, and maybe less sequels, less trilogies that are unnecessary, less duologies, because he'd stand true to himself and say, nope, there is no need for it. What I've accomplished in this singular movie is enough. I'm not making another movie. It's not required. If you want to make it, you're not putting my fucking name against it. Get someone else in who can do it. And just that originality. We've seen this with Star Wars, man. We've seen it with the sequel trilogy. I like The Force Awakens. It's probably one of the better Star Wars movies Disney has put out, but it has no originality whatsoever. It's a complete regurgitation of the first three movies in the Star Wars franchise. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Beat for beat, it's the same shit, condensed into one movie. There is no originality. You can fucking just pick out that's in that movie, that's in this movie. Everything he has stated in that second quote has been ignored by J.J. Abrams, Disney and Lucasfilm for the sort of new era of Star Wars under their guise, if you'd like. And that's ultimately why the movie didn't, well, I mean, that did succeed, but the actual franchise as a whole has, in the main, been criticised, and it's featured ever diminishing returns in terms of box office, because your foundation is a complete beat for beat plagiarised version of what we've seen before. So I'm enjoying what I'm reading from Dan Trachtenberg. I don't necessarily want to see a sequel to Prey. I don't see in my mind's eye personally where the story continues. Our entire family have been wiped out from what I recall. Certainly our brother, huge chunk of her sort of, what would you call, tribe, have been destroyed by this singular predator. I don't know, she came out victorious. The story was told. It was almost like, it was an original concept. I enjoyed it, but we have seen similar vibes being explored before. The Lord of the Rings with Eowyn. She's not trusted to go out and hunt with the men. She's not trusted to stand on her own 2 feet and do her thing. She's to be left behind. She ignores it. She goes out, faces these foes, ends up bringing down the Nazgul, or one of them anyway, the king, I forget what he's called. We've seen this concept done before, but where do you take it in a second movie, in a third movie, without rehashing or completely fucking getting off kilter and doing something that feels slightly mental and contradictory to the first movie? I don't see where we get a second Prey movie here. And indeed, what he's going on to say here makes no sense to me whatsoever. He's talking about potentially bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger back. This guy's in his 70s now. He's still in great shape, but fucking hell, man, we need to stop getting back to Arnie. The guy's been mined to death in the Terminator franchise. Did he not die in the first Predator movie? I'm pretty sure he did. He sacrificed himself at the end, blew himself up to kill the Predator in the first movie. I'm pretty fucking sure that happened. Maybe wrong. It's been a while since I've seen it, but we'll read the quote anyway. I don't know how to do things, but I'm learning how to do things. Who's this? Is this the same guy? I did learn there was an attempt to have Arnold and Predators. All I'll say is there's still time for those guys. They're still around, and wouldn't that be awesome? Oh, not for me. Not for me, man. Look, in regards to sequels, we've seen some done really well. We've seen fresh new takes on existing franchises. We've seen it with Bumblebee, obviously, in the Transformers franchise. They never really springboarded off of that. I think it was Haley Steinfeld, I want to say. Or was it Steinfeld? I may be wrong there. I think I'm obsessed with Haley Steinfeld, and it's not her name. That was a really fresh human story, a unique story, and a sea of CGI, balls to the wall, fucking mentalness. And they never really took that concept and ran with it. They just seem to drop the ball, and nothing's really happened since. That's an example of Prey in a different franchise, where they haven't really. There is potential for that character, for a continuation of that story, and they've not done it. So I'm kind of conflicted on whether I want to congratulate them and just saying, look, we've got a great story here, but it's a self-contained story, or whether to sort of slap them down and say, what the fuck are you doing? You've got a brilliant young actress, and you've got the potential of creating a franchise that isn't what your man has gave us, your man whose name's eluding me, director who loves CGI and just throwing fucking special effects everywhere. What is his name again? Why am I banking on it? Doesn't matter. Here's examples of sequels that haven't worked and why you should keep a singular story. First, I'll throw one into the hat right away. 2 sequels. Force Awakens comes out. It's unoriginal. It's okay though. It's a nice sort of introduction for new Star Wars fans, I guess. If you've seen the previous movies, you don't have to watch it. It's been done, and it's been done better. Rise of Skywalker. I'm blanking on the name. Last Jedi. 2 shocking sequels. Absolutely dreadful. Disconnected. Plot threads been fucking thrown away left, right and centre, willy-nilly. Off the top of my head, other sequels that have not really worked. The Meg 2, why did that even happen? Probably a good movie, but why? Why would you do it? I don't know. Jason Statham, studio interference, influence, try to get that sequel made. Lord knows, I did not even know this existed. The Sting 2. The Sting was a fantastic movie. It featured Paul Newman, it featured Robert Redford, a whole host of brilliant actors from that time were in that movie. It was really intelligent, the script was great. I loved it. Big fan of Paul Newman. One of my all-time favourite movie actors. I don't mind Redford either. I've watched a huge amount of his movies from back in the day, right through to modern day times. I didn't realise they made this thing too. And this is why you don't make sequels to movies. Totally different cast by the looks of it. I'm pretty sure there's no Paul Newman in there. I wasn't aware of it, so it simply can't be. It can't have Paul Newman in there. It can't have Robert Redford in there. A 24% audience score. It's an abomination. Not necessary. Shouldn't have happened. Atlas Shrugged. Who's John Galt? Don't even know what the fuck this is, man. Moving on. The Gallows Act 2. Ring 2. That whole franchise could have just not existed. Just one movie and be done. Move on. I'm not a huge fan of it. Not a huge fan of the original. Not really for me. And I hate the character as well. The actual ring bitch, as your man Casper Sight would call her. Sadako, I'm not a huge fan of that character because I do play Dead by Daylight and it's one of the most annoying killers to come up against. Constantly teleporting, you have to get those cassettes and run to another fucking TV to bring these little tokens down. It's a pain in the arse. I've been mentally scarred by that character. Shouldn't have happened. Police Academy. Basically after Police Academy 2, I'll be fair and give them 2 movies. None of them should have happened. No more sequels. Just ripping the arse out of it. Highlander. I would argue Highlander 1 shouldn't have happened. Staying Alive. A sequel to Saturday Night Fever. Again, I didn't know this existed. This is an educational trip for me tonight. A chance for John to get his pecs out. To get his 6-pack out. Clearly a very underwhelming movie though. Didn't do well. Return to the Blue Lagoon. Jaws the Revenge, again a movie franchise that shouldn't be a movie franchise. It should be one movie and it should be done. Super Babies, Baby Geniuses should never existed, period. The first one, Baby Geniuses, whatever, shouldn't have existed. Try to make is sometimes a singular story is enough. Movie is enough. We've seen it over the years. Movies I grew up with. I mean, I'm going to use The Fugitive, but I think there was a sequel to The Fugitive, but it wasn't really a sequel. It was just a continuation of the sort of, don't know what the fuck they were called, Tommy Lee Jones crew. It was a continuation of those guys. It wasn't featuring Harrison Ford. It wasn't a real continuation of the original story. Technically a sequel though, I suppose. That's a self-contained story for me that just works and should have remained singular. Shawshank Redemption's also one that springs to mind. Arlington Road. So many great standalone movies from the 80s going back. You've got E.T., you've got so many brilliant single stories that weren't sort of expanded out into something more, multiple sequels. Again, other examples that aren't on this list. Terminator 2 is an example of a fantastic sequel. Everything that came afterwards, nope. Sometimes you just have your story finished after 1 or 2 movies. You don't have to expand it any further. I don't know what the plans are. I don't know whether he is going to make this Prey 2. It's all subjective just now. It's all hypothetical. Not subjective. It's all hypothetical just now. He's talking about it, but he's not seemingly got anything solid in place. Again, it's not a story I think deserves a sequel. I think it's singular and it's great and it should be left alone. Otherwise we'll have another Predator on my hands where it's diminishing returns and it's just shite. But again, I do like the cut of his jib and the way he's speaking about handling sequels. So I'm conflicted with this. I don't really want to see it, but I kind of trust that if it does come, this guy will have a really interesting gem of an idea to present to the world. I'm going to move on though, because I think I've spoke for about 25 minutes on that, 20 minutes, which is quite impressive. I didn't see that coming when I actually picked the topics out. I thought the show would be over after 20 minutes, but I clearly underestimate my ability to speak, and I can speak for Britain. Moving on, topic 2. The writer says Star Trek 4 is still on the tracks. I was going to speak about this writer in 2 topics, because this person's also involved in a Sleepy Hollow remake, reboot. I love Sleepy Hollow from back in the day, one of my favourite. I think it's a Tim Burton movie, I'm pretty sure it is. Might not be, but I think it is. Him and Johnny Depp. Fucking loved that movie. I was obsessed with it, watched it numerous times. It's been a TV show. Why are we rebooting this, man? It was seriously, why are we doing it? Why are we having another Sleepy Hollow movie, potentially? They're talking about diving down and doing something unique to the story and unearthing the true concept, the themes that are explored, doing something different. I suppose that should be lauded, but fuck, it's been done. It's been done well. Leave it alone. Do something new. But the same writers involved in the writing of Star Trek 2, or Star Trek 4. I'm thinking about Sleepy Hollow 2. Star Trek 4. And they have come out and gave us an update. And it's a surprising update. It's Lindsey Anderson Beer, incidentally. What a name. The names just keep coming. Mid-Thunder and Beer. Imagine being called Beer. It's making me want to drink a beer just now. I think I need one. And they've said it's still on the tracks. It's surprising because we have had the likes of Chris Pine coming out, and obviously your man that plays Spock, who I'm blanking on just now, Zachary Quinto. They've come out and they've spoke about this potentially being dead. I spoke about Zachary Quinto about a month and a half back, how he was passing the baton over to the chap who plays him in Strange New Worlds, I think it's called. I've been watching it. I don't know how I can't remember the name of it. It's clearly one of those nights for me. So these guys have been speaking about this in past tense. It's over. There's no real updates. There's no motion in place from the studio, Paramount that is, for a continuation of their universe. So naturally everyone's kind of moved on and thought it's done. It's dusted. It's finished. But yeah, I read this and apparently it's not. They're actually working on a script. It's on tracks, the tracks, and yeah, I'll read it. I'll not speak for the actual writer. I'll actually read their words straight from the cat's, the horse's mouth, sorry, not the cat's. The cat would meow. Horse would do, I don't know. We're not going to go down making horse noises. I'm not fucking Joan Desmonds or whatever the fuck they're called. Crazy horses. We're not doing that. That's actually a party piece of mine. I actually can do a good impersonation of that, but not tonight. This is what they had to say. They were speaking to Collider about it being stuck in development, purgatory, limbo, hell, if you'd like. And they said this, it's still on the tracks. I love that project. And it was another one that I had to hop off of to direct this movie. I don't know what movie they're talking about. Grab that little thing out of the air there. It's a little annoying piece of hair or dust or something. And that was a hard thing to do. But I love that everybody involved. Let's just get back. We'll go back in time like Tenet and re-pronounce that or speak that last sentence there, because that seems like really wacky fucking English, or perhaps my brain's not working. But I love that everybody involved with that project. But I love that everybody involved with that project. Now that's definitely butchered English. I think they mean, but I love everybody involved with that project. Well, I mean, they seem to love it as well. Chris seems to have enjoyed his time as James Tiberius Kirk. Likewise, Zachary Quinto as Spock. Obviously, Carl Urban. Scottish people can't say Carol. We like to say Carol, as in the carols you sing at Christmas. Or the female name Carol. We can't say Carl. You need to be English or American. Carl. Can't do it. But I digress. Urban, your man, he seemed to enjoy himself playing Bones McCoy. And obviously you've got Zoe Saldana, you've got an incredible cast, but there is one glaring omission there. Omission. There's one person missing, and it is obviously the late, great, and I'm going to fucking blank his name here just as I was about to say it. Holy shit. Your man that passed away, I'm blanking on his name. He was the same age as me. Holy fuck. He was in Green Room. The dementia is kicking in hardcore here. I'm going to search him up. You know that? I am going to search him up. I'm going to take it off screen. I don't want to search it up. I actually want to just get the name on my own, but I'm doing a fucking stream. So it's just not going to work. It literally left my brain as I was about to say it, which is fucking terrifying. I can't tell you. 2009. Where is he? Give me his name, bitch. Come on, where is he? Holy fuck, where is he? I forgot Chris Hemsworth was in there. Jesus Christ, he was the father, wasn't he? Anton Yelchin. I would never have got it. I had Yelch in my mind, but I didn't have Anton. Anton Yelchin's he's no longer with us, sadly. The man's been away for about 7 years or something. I remember vividly. I was out playing snooker when the news came up that he'd tragically passed away, and it actually took the wind out of my sails, the air out of my lungs. It shocked me deeply because a fantastic actor. I'd seen him in numerous things, Salvation, obviously Green Room, as I spoke about, Star Trek movies. A brilliant young actor. He was in his mid-20s at that point, like me, and so much promise, such a bright future, and obviously that was ripped away in one horrific moment. But his absence is going to be a hard thing to deal with. It's not like you can explain it away because he didn't die. He didn't even look like he was going to die in the previous movies, because of course they plan to do multiple movies after this, potentially featuring this guy. So how do you write out Pavel Chekhov? Do you write him out off camera? Do you put it into like some sort of, I don't know, exposition at the start of the movie? How do you explain the missing link in this Enterprise sort of crew? Because they're all one big familial crew. That's the power of Star Trek. The original crew, they're all symbiotic, they're linked, they have this relationship, and when one of them loses a life or something happens, it puts them in danger. I'm talking about Spock when they lose a life. I can't think of anyone else big losing a life in Star Trek. It's meant to shock you. So I don't know how you can create a fourth movie and not have Pavel Chekhov in there. Do you recast? It's very difficult to replace the energy that Anton brought to that character. But it's such a brilliant cast. I'm looking at them just now, man. Carol Urban was amazing as Leonard McCoy. Leonard McCoy. Yeah, Leonard McCoy. What? Yeah, Leonard McCoy. Fucking hell, man. Bones McCoy. I was reading that there and I read Leonard Nimoy next to him in the cast listing, and I'm like, Jesus, it actually fucking scrambled my brain for a second. Bones McCoy. I always think of him as Bones McCoy, not Leonard McCoy. It's such a great cast, and it does feel like a waste not to continue on with that cast. So again, much like the previous topic, it's about sequels. Do you continue on? This is a franchise I've really enjoyed. I was always a big fan of Star Trek growing up. I grew up with my grandfather watching the original. It was silly to look at even back in the 90s. It was stupid. The effects were very dated, but the writing was there. I think it's Gene Roddenberry was the writer. The writing was there. It was powerful, packed a punch, like those great sort of Heston movies and stuff like that from back in the 50s and 60s. On a technical level, it may not stand the test of time, but in terms of the writing, of the story, of the acting, it's very much there. It's visceral, and it's enjoyable because of that. And that's something I feel has been lost, but that's a whole other story. That's a whole other conversation. Something that's been lost in modern cinema is almost that brilliant acting and just the visceralness of it, if that's even a word, because you have got the ability to tell a story almost visually now, and the actors are almost fucking forgotten about. And we've seen that with the strikes recently, going on for a long time, potentially a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. The actual people who power these movies, the experience, the actors, the writers, forgotten about because of CG and big bombastic effects. Thankfully, guys like Nolan and Tarantino have not forgotten about it, and they're keeping that fucking going. But I enjoyed the first three Star Trek movies rebooted with J.J. Abrams. I liked the third one probably more than the second, although I did like the second. I've seen all of them in the theatres. And just really, I think if Anton hadn't passed away, we would have had a Star Trek 4 by now. But I'm also conflicted because it's been so long, you haven't got Anton. Has it lost the momentum? I don't know, man. I don't know what to do for the best. I really enjoy it though, so I'm edging towards wanting a sequel to Star Trek and somehow explaining Chekhov's demise. But cool to see that it's still potentially happening, man. Time will tell with that. They are getting older now. Fuck knows. We're going to have to move it, and quick. They're all in their 40s now. They're not getting any younger. Going to move on to the next topic. You know what? I may skip this. Just go to the end. I'll speak about it. Fuck it. I'll speak about it briefly. Time's getting on here. My throat is starting to die on me. It's Taika Waititi. Next Goal Wins is the movie that he's talking about. It's a movie he's been working on since lockdown, I believe. Maybe even prior to COVID, actually. Obviously, he's since worked in Love and Thunder, and I think he probably wishes he didn't. Just based off of the response critically, and indeed from the regular Joe Boggs in the street, guys like me who went and seen it and were really let down by that movie. It felt like there was too much Taika Waititi humour, comedy in there. And I love Taika, he's one of my favourite directors. I love everything he puts out, mainly. But that Love and Thunder movie didn't work for me. You've got an Academy Award winning villain in there, and Christian Bale, and just, I don't know, he's dropped the ball. It didn't really work. Tonally, it wasn't great. Just fitting jokes in when they weren't necessary. I understand Marvel like a joke or two, but fucking not every 20 seconds. And I bet he wished he didn't do that movie now. And I think that's probably why that Star Wars script is taking longer than anyone probably thought it would, because I think deep down he knows he probably doesn't want to do a Star Wars film either. The last thing this man needs after a bit of a flop of a Marvel movie is a Star Wars movie with all that fucking toxic fandom that comes with it, the baggage that comes with a bad Star Wars movie. He probably wants to get back to what made him, the zaniness, the eccentricity, but brilliant, heartfelt human stories at the middle of it all, the centre of it, if you'd like. And from what I'm seeing here, Next Goal Wins. I've heard about this movie for years. I wasn't sure what it was actually about though. I never really delved into it, to be honest with you. And now that I have, I'm really intrigued. It's giving me vibes of Cool Runnings. And that's never a bad thing. One of my favourite movies growing up as a kid was Cool Runnings. Just a fantastic, spirited, funny, heartfelt, great sports movie. Sort of rags to riches. I don't know. What was it called again? The young man that came up against the Minotaur. David v Goliath kind of story. And that's got my anticipatory juices wetted a little bit. You then hear Taika speaking about what it represents, what it comes down to, and he had this to say to Empire. This is why I love Taika. He just doesn't mince his words. He's straight to the point. He says it's about being happy and slowing the fuck down. And that's something we could all be doing with in modern day life. It's very much pedal to metal, 200 miles an hour. Not really relaxing. There's a huge anxiety problem, I feel. An epidemic in modern day life where people are just walking about with sort of manageable levels of anxiety, but they are anxious nonetheless. I can't even speak tonight. Issues with continuity and continuation. Even now I can't say it. Continuation. Every now and again you'll discover a word in life that you trip over, and it doesn't matter how many times you say the word, you will just continue to trip over it. Edited is one for me. I says it there, but usually if I say that at any great pace at all, I can't say it. My tongue just simply cannot produce the intonations required to say edited. And even now I feel like I'm continuation seems to be another one, and indeed what I just spoke about there's another one. Fucking lost the plot. Look, I'm really looking forward to this, man. But anxiety, there's an epidemic of anxiety and just anxiousness in society, and I think if people just try to be more happy and slowed their lives just a little bit down, it would relieve a lot of those problems. And hell, I'm going into a time in the year where slowing down is just not on the fucking, it's not on the order. I'm going to be speeding up even more. But to be fair, I'm usually Johnny horizontal most of the year, so I don't really have an issue with slowing down myself. But it's a powerful, important message that Taika's trying to convey in this really spirited and potentially inspirational movie. This is what I had to say. Playing a heightened version of Rongen in Waititi's film, incidentally. Rongen is Thomas Rongen, a Dutch-American hardnut, who's brought in to try and change the fortunes of the American Samoan national football team. They get drubbed 31-0 by Australia, and then they want to go on and try and win their very first game. Now, we've seen this in European terms. We've seen it with the likes of Liechtenstein and San Marino. Teams who are getting pumped rotten, as we like to say here, by the likes of Germany, Spain, even Scotland have beaten these teams handily over the years. And they finally actually, Sumbo in Liechtenstein's case, have actually turned a corner and they're winning games now. They've actually got a decent side for a very small country. So this is something that's been replicated in different regions of the world. Really small countries try to come up against much larger nations and beat them in sporting events. We've seen it with Cool Runnings. The story was told of a bobsleigh team coming from Jamaica and they were laughed at. I don't think they actually done anything at the Winter Olympics. The actual story does end like it does in the movie. They flip over. But it shows you the indefatigability of the athletes to carry the bobsleigh over the line. That's a spirit that's very hard to replicate. Potentially going to be seeing this again here. Fassbender's playing it. It's always good to see Michael Fassbender in a movie. What a guy. Charisma personified. You can see here, journey towards a more peaceful mindset over the course of the film had an effect on the director. There are probably elements, and I love that as well. We've seen that with John Candy in Cool Runnings. He was a hard nut. He was a little bit stuffy and serious. But he mellowed out when he was around these Jamaican kids. He just changed his personality, and he'd been staying in Jamaica. The actual character, I don't know if it was fucking loosely based in real events or completely verbatim adapted to the film. But the way that character went on the journey with the athletes and changed, it's something that's really good to see. Seeing human beings come together and embracing different cultures and rubbing off of each other and changing each other for the better. I think that's something that's pretty special, and it's nice to see getting told in an actual film, a story getting told in a film. At this to say, there are probably elements of the character we created around Thomas that I see myself. I see developing if I lose my patience. I've got quite high standards when I work with other people and can feel when someone's not getting things right. This thing builds up in me. I feel like this idea of becoming more patient with people is a thing that I've had to learn from being patient with this film. And again, look, Taika's going on a journey as well, which is always something we should all be aspiring to do, to become better versions of ourselves, to go on journeys and become more wise and evolve as human beings. It's all about spiritual journeys, isn't it? Really, when it's all said and done. You can blind yourself with materialism and all the other nonsense. That's all distractions. It's all about becoming a better version of yourself. I fundamentally believe the Buddhist teachings are right. There is multiple levels of existence and you have to achieve a certain level of wisdom. I may be butchering Buddhist teachings here, I have to stress. But they believe in reincarnation, I'm sure, and just re-going at it until you get it right. Now, again, I may be wrong there, but whatever that teaching is, I believe in it. It may not be Buddhist, but I fucking believe in it. Went off kilter again, off piste if you like. Let's get back into it. Next goal wins. Taika Waititi. This is a random one. I don't think this has got anything to do with the movie itself necessarily, but it was just speaking about filming in Hawaii and how that maybe aided in the slowing down and of being at peace during the production of this movie. I really understand why Adam Sandler just does everything in Hawaii. I didn't realise he did. I thought he floated about New York a lot, but clearly not. It's just nice to be around brown people. It's like being at home. You want to relax me? Put me around Pacific Islanders. New goal unlocked. There you go. Well, I'm really looking forward to this movie. It's a sports movie. It's an inspirational tale. It's a human story. And you just know that that's where Taika excels. That's where this guy goes up a level and sort of directing. We've seen it with Jojo Rabbit. We've seen it with Hunt for the Wilder People. We've seen it with every fucking movie, independent movie this guy's put out. Just full of incredible laughs, full of emotional moments, booting the ball moments coming right after you're laughing your head off. Great music will be in there. And it'll be spirited, it'll be great, it'll be well wrote. I'm really looking forward to it. You blend that with a football story, I'm on board, man. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Taika rising out of the ashes like a fucking phoenix that was the ashes of For Love and Thunder and getting back into what he does best, making these great independent movies. I'm going to move on though to the finale of the show. I don't actually know why I did this. Why did I use this topic? Why did I put it in here? Because it's just a slight nonsense topic. And I'm kind of regretting it. Hello, Valves, by the way, BTW, if that's what your name is. If I've not butchered it. Sorry, I had the YouTube sort of live streaming studio up, so I missed your comment, mate. I do apologise if you're away now. But hello, welcome in, and then maybe goodbye. Hello, goodbye. It works, doesn't it? Because I'm speaking about the Beatles. Although more pertinent to John Lennon and George Harrison than Paul McCartney, who wrote Hello, Goodbye. And it's Keith Richards. He says, and I quote, I'm going to bring the article up in a moment, but first I'm going to quote him, that he thinks George Harrison and John Lennon could have fit in the Rolling Stones. That's the sort of finale of the show. That's where I'm ending things with that. How do you even speak about that? How do you even speak about that? It's a fucking opinion from Keith Richards, and who am I to disagree with his opinion? And it's really about a hypothetical situation that never was and can never be, because George Harrison and John Lennon are no longer with us. They are long shuffled off this mortal coil. So I don't really know why I spoke about this. Why I'm speaking about it. I was originally going to speak about AI tracks not being banned from Spotify. The main man at Spotify's come out and says they're not going to ban AI submitted music or anything, content. But I thought, you know what, I'll not speak about that. I'll go and speak about the Beatles, because we get good numbers on the Beatles usually when we clip it and put it out in a separate little video. So maybe that was the rationale. I did speak about that at the start. But the more I'm looking at the topic, the more I'm thinking it's going to be an almighty struggle. But I'm going to get into it anyway. I digress, man. We'll get into it. Maka he's been collabing with the Rolling Stones on one of their new tracks, Bite My Head Off. And this has got Keith speaking about the Beatles, his once compatriots in the 1960s. And he had this to say to the Daily Telegraph. I think he really does like speaking to the Daily Telegraph, does Keith? I think I've spoke about him before, and he spoke to the Daily Telegraph before. He had this to say: Paul happened to be in town, and we couldn't keep him away. Bless his heart. Fucking Paul McCartney. And hey, if you can get one of the Beatles on your track, you know you do it. Paul's a very amiable cat to play with. We've been great friends forever. Incidentally, I really do like that Angry song from Rolling Stones, that latest song that came out. I was a little bit disparaging when I spoke about the Stones previously. I maintain that Mick Jagger can't. He can sing, but he's not got an amazing voice, and he certainly can't dance. And he's a bit of a meh frontman. It's just the energy he brings is. If I was going to go and see the Stones, I'd go see the Stones for Keith Richards and Ron Wood. And if I could get in a time machine and go back, it would be for Brian Jones and Keith Richards. Maybe Charlie Watts, certainly not Bill Wyman. Not really Mick Jagger. Mick, he's a cool guy. Bit of a womanizer, bit of a whore, allegedly. But as a singer, I mean, never once listened to a Stones song and says, you know what, he's got some voice. He's all right, but yeah, I mean, he's a multi-millionaire. He's made a career out of singing. Who the fuck am I? So I kind of maintain that he's not a great singer, Mick, but I've kind of reined it back a bit regards to Angry. I actually really do like the song, and indeed his voice is fucking decent on it. So I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I'm not really, because he never really had an amazing voice, and therefore, if you're not Paul McCartney, or indeed, I don't know, Bon Jovi, for instance, with unbelievable highs, which you then subsequently lose when you get older. If you're not that and you've just got this samey voice, you don't lose it as you get older. And Mick hasn't really lost it, to be fair to him. But I maintain he never really had what they had in the first place. But I like Angry. It's a cool fucking track. And even then, it's the actual guitar that brings me in. So it's Keith Richards again. And maybe even Ron Wood. But I'm pretty sure it's Keith Richards. Keith's fucking class. That's the point I'm making. He went on to say this. This is the main heart of the actual topic I'm speaking about here. He spoke about the relationship between the Beatles and the Stones. And he says, I don't think John Lennon would have had much problem fitting into the Stones, or George, if you can imagine that sort of thing happening. We were the same generation and we all loved the same music. When we first heard the Beatles, we were relieved that there was some other band in England on the same track that we were on, and within a few months, that track was the main track. Look, he's fucking right, Keith. John Lennon would have easily have stepped into the Rolling Stones. He had the energy, he had that aggressiveness, that rock star vibe. He was a front man that had a bark and a bite about him. He looked as though he could knock 7 shades of shit out of you with his granny fucking glasses and white suit on. And that's something I've always respected about John Lennon. It's why he's my favourite from the Beatles, because I've got a slightly aggressive edge at times, the way that I approach life. And I respect people who are like that. They just say what they want and they think about the consequences afterwards. And just his sort of cocksureness, if you like, the way he approached the music, the way he approached the stage. There wasn't any stammering or stuttering or the album before pish like Macca used to say. And look, Macca's amazing. I'm not doing Macca down. I love Paul McCartney. You didn't have that with John Lennon. The guy was playing the fucking keyboards with his elbows and chewing gum and looking as cool as hell. That was John Lennon. And that's exactly, to be fair to the Stones, the energy they brought consistently. So John would have absolutely have slid into the Rolling Stones, no problem, and have been the best musician and singer by a country mile. I have to say, certainly best writer. And again, that's not me doing down Mick Jagger and Keith Richards' writing. Did write some very good songs. George, it's hypothetical, but George always struck me as being a more gentler soul. Very funny guy, scathing, unbelievable wit, could cut you down, I'm imagining, with words. And he's just a cruel sense of humour. Again, like me. Did he have that rock star energy that a Keith Richards had? Well, I mean, you could argue Brian Jones didn't have that. He had that fucking mop top of Anakin Skywalker from Phantom Menace haircut, didn't he? And he was out his mind and drugs half the time. Could George have done any worse than Brian Jones? I don't know. I love Brian Jones, so it's hard to say. It's all hypothetical, isn't it, man? That's why I've just put John Lennon in there, incidentally, because I have no doubt in my mind he could have fitted into the actual Stones. It's all hypothetical. Also, it never happened, and it's really a nothing conversation, which is why I regret fucking putting it on the show. I love the Stones. I prefer the Beatles. They were amazing bands. They were different bands. They were very much of their era, and to be fair to the Stones, they have continued it over multiple decades. Love them or hate them. Still doing it live. Got to appreciate it. The Beatles get out when they were on top, and you could argue they are still on top 50 years later. So, 2 different acts. We don't need them to combine. And look, we are getting them combining just now. I'm intrigued to hear that song that Macca has collabed on with the Rolling Stones. But yeah, it's hypothetical, and we don't really need them to combine. They were doing their own thing and they were doing it very well. Some would say the Stones were doing what the Beatles were doing 2 months later on a lower level of quality. Not my words, but the words of John Lennon when he was a very bitter man in the early 70s and doing his scream therapy. I'm going to round it up on that note. What's your thoughts on the topics I touched upon? What do you make about Prey? Director Dan Trachtenberg coming out and discussing the potential of a sequel. Do you want to see a sequel to Prey? Is it something that intrigues you? Have you seen his words? Have you maybe watched the show and got to this point? God fucking bless you if you have. I actually think the guy's passionate about film and he's got the right mindset about approaching sequels, but I'm not convinced Prey requires a sequel. Share your thoughts down below if you agree or disagree. What's your thoughts on Star Trek 4? Still been on the radar, still on the tracks, according to the writer. Thoughts on Next Goal Wins being this uplifting human story about slowing down and relaxing, potentially. Maybe. I've not seen the movie yet, but it's what Taika Waititi says. Share your thoughts down below about that, about Keith Richards talking about the Beatles and who could fit into the Stones. Would you have liked to have seen that back in the day with Dirty Mac? I think Keith may have been in Dirty Mac. Was he? I think Keith Richards and John Lennon, Eric Clapton, and your man from Cream were in Dirty Mac. So they kind of collabed already in the 60s. Share your thoughts down below though about that. Anything at all can go down below in the comment section. That's the place to put your thoughts. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to your eyeballs. Do the same thing over on Twitch. Follow button, notifications button over there. Also, we've got a podcast for audio format on Spotify playlists. You'll not hear this on there because we do not put solo shows on because no one wants to listen to the same Kermit the Frog motherfucking beefed up voice just waffling shite for an hour. You want to hear conversations in a podcast, so that's what we do. Me and Stephen talk and we put that on there. So if you want to see us over there, like and follow the podcast and Spotify. All that's left to be said is until the next time, I am done. Thank you to everybody that came in. Thank you to your man over on Twitch that commented. Until the next time.